So welcome back to episode 23 of Fatal Female Friday. In today's case, we're going to be talking about the case of Grace Lux, who was actually a teacher from Wisconsin all the way back in the early 1900s. So let's go ahead and get started. Grace was reported to be born on March 3rd, 1878. By the time that she was in her 30s, it is said that she actually got 2 degrees, one in medieval history and philosophy. She would soon meet a married man named David, who was in his 50s and was a veterinarian. His wife was obviously jealous that his eyes apparently tended to be on her, but of course, Grace saw David as nothing more but than like an opportunity.
And you would do it too for a check.
Apparently, she barely understood agriculture, and he understood it well. So in exchange for lessons in agriculture, he basically asked her to finish a book, which, you know, sounds innocent enough. And of course, their relationship blossomed from a professional one into eventually a sexual one. And so, of course, Grace, because, you know, he's a married man, and this is back when, you know, adultery was, you can go to jail for adultery, she was like, no. And so David somehow convinces her that there's no love in the marriage and that his wife doesn't care, which obviously she does, because remember I said she was jealous. And so this, of course, made Grace give in. Of course, they go out of town for these affairs, you know, going on nice dinners and nice hotels. Grace tells David to leave his wife, and he says that he's going to.
Bullshit.
Years later, of course, David is still with his wife with no intentions of her finding out. Grace apparently is even said to have thought about suicide and even wrote a letter to the wife. One day, she actually pulls a gun on David and tells him to put like his hand on the Bible and swear that he'll tell Mary.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
So on June 21st, 1917, apparently Mary, who was the wife, finally confronts Grace, and Grace is like, oh no, he loves me, and she has letters. Mary obviously calls her a liar, and Grace is like, let me go get the letters. So she goes and gets the letters. So while Grace is going to go get the letters, Mary is like getting her husband David for help. And so Mary shockingly tells Grace that you weren't the first and you won't be the last. And even proceeds to call Grace a bitch.
You bitch.
Grace, of course, pulls out a gun instead of the letters, shoots Mary twice, and ends up killing her. She then turns the gun on herself, shooting herself in the chest, and I guess in a suicide attempt, but it didn't go through. The bullet from the first shot that Grace gave to herself, apparently it went in one side and came out the other without somehow hitting any arteries.
How, Sway?
And so David eventually comes home, and David runs to like go get help. And so obviously once police arrive, Grace has no other choice but to confess to the attempted suicide. And so surprisingly, she still actually has the gun in her hand, and so the police, she asked like somebody like where her heart was, and then they show her, but somehow she so then she tries to shoot herself where they were told her heart was. Somehow she actually misses, and she still was living after that happened.
Bitch. The door.
So miraculously, somehow she makes a full recovery. During the trial, it's even said that she got gifts, letters, and actually a couple marriage proposals.
What? What the fuck?
Her attorneys, Henry Lookney, James Clancy, and Jim Lowry, were basically trying to prove that she was insane. The all-male jury would actually convict her of second-degree murder, and of course, Grace surprisingly would actually attack the prosecutor, and it actually took several deputies to get Grace off.
Damn!
She was then obviously returned to her jail cell, and then
3 weeks later,
she was charged with, she was given 19 years in the year 1918. On the anniversary of the murder, she was suspended a day in solitary confinement. There were many people actually believe that David should actually be in jail because he was the one that was being unfaithful. Because remember back then, actually being unfaithful was a crime. You could actually go to jail for it. And so David ended up only spending like 1 year in jail, which was somehow the maximum sentence for being unfaithful to your spouse.
Bullshit.
When he was 83 years old in 1948, he apparently had married a 33-year-old who was a mistress from when he had a third wife.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Anyway, so apparently he would die 2 years later in 1950. So, of course, gotta rewind back in time, remember about Grace. So she would actually be pardoned by Governor John Blaine in 1923.
Bitch, I know you fucking lied. I know you fucking lied.
And so apparently she ended up writing 2 articles for the Atlantic Monthly in 1925 alias name Alice Thornton. Same year, Grace apparently was said to get married to a Mr. Brown, but no one has apparently ever seen or heard of him.
Imagination.
And so, of course, Grace ends up dying on September 8th, 1930, at the age of 52 due to surgery complications, and is buried in a unmarked grave in her hometown. So, of course, that was a tragic story of Grace Lux. I hope you hopefully learned something new. Yeah, that's in episode 23, and I will see you fatal females with the next case. Bye!